Okay, let's just jump right into it. Most people aren't poor, not in the way we usually think about it. No, there's something way more common and honestly way more dangerous. They're comfortably broke. So what we're going to do here is break down the 4 big mechanisms that quietly lock you into this state. And you'll see how just understanding the pattern is the first real step to getting out.
So, what does it actually mean to be comfortably broke? Well, it's that feeling, you know? You've got a decent salary, a nice apartment, you're living a pretty good lifestyle, but there's no way out. It feels like you're moving up in the world, but when you look at your finances, you're basically just running in place, never really building any lasting wealth.
And this quote, man, it just nails it. The trap isn't that you don't have enough money. The trap is the constant upkeep of the comfortable life you've already built. All your energy, all your money, it just goes into maintaining your spot, not actually getting ahead. So here's the game plan. First, we'll look at the paradox itself. Then we're going to dive deep into the 4 big traps: income, consumerism, tax, and time. And finally, we'll talk about how seeing this system for what it is becomes your key to switching off the autopilot.
You can think of the whole system as a soft cage. Yeah, it's comfortable, but make no mistake, it's still a cage. But the second you understand its design, you see the bars, you see the lock, you see the daily routine, you realize you don't actually have to stay inside it. So let's start by looking at that first bar in the cage.
All right, let's get into our first major mechanism, the income trap. Think about it. Since you were a kid, basically every institution in your life, especially school, has been preparing you for one single role: to be an earner. We're taught how to be a good employee, how to be reliable, how to fit neatly into systems that already exist, not how to build our own. And look at this. This comparison is absolutely crucial. When you're an earner, your full focus is on participation. Success? That's measured by your salary, the next promotion, a fancier job title. But for an owner, the game is completely different. The focus is on accumulation. And the metrics that matter are equity, assets, and the incredible power of compounding. And that really boils down to this one powerful idea. Your income, that paycheck that hits your account every couple of weeks, is designed to keep you in the system. It keeps you alive, it keeps you stable. But it's ownership, building things that work for you, that's what actually sets you free from having to trade your time for money. And that is exactly why the trap is so effective. The comfort of that stable paycheck, the predictability of it all, it's the soft cage we talked about. It kind of numbs you to the reality that while you're creating a ton of value, you're not actually capturing it for yourself. You're progressing, but you're not compounding. You're participating, but you're not accumulating.
Now for trap number 2. This is the one that makes sure that even if your income does go up, you still stay right where you are. The consumerism trap is literally engineered to suck up any extra cash you make before you even have a chance to think about turning it into real wealth.
And it works in this simple, almost invisible cycle. First, you get a raise. Awesome. Immediately, the world starts offering you slightly nicer, slightly more comfortable versions of everything you already have. Pretty soon, these little upgrades feel totally normal. And just like that, your new surplus is gone. And as a result, capital, the seed money for building wealth, never even gets a chance to exist.
And listen, this isn't about buying yachts or crazy designer stuff. It's about the small things. A slightly better phone, getting food delivered a bit more often, adding one more streaming service. These upgrades are normalized so perfectly that choosing not to spend that extra money can actually feel weird, like you're depriving yourself. It doesn't feel like you're overspending, it just feels like you're being an adult.
Seriously, just think about it for a second. Can you even name them all right now? The system doesn't need you to make one big, reckless purchase. It just needs you to spend a bunch of tiny amounts, over and over, predictably. Your comfort is literally a business model, and your extra income is the revenue. Okay, next up is the third trap, the tax trap. And this one hits you right after consumerism is already taken its slice. Now, most people feel like the tax system is unfair, but when you understand the design behind it, well, that's when things get really interesting. This table lays it all out, and it's super simple when you see it like this. Income from your labor, your salary, is stable, predictable, and perfectly trackable for the government. It flows through this very visible pipeline, so you guessed it, it gets taxed aggressively. But income from capital, things like investments or businesses, it's flexible, it's mobile, it can be moved around, and so it gets taxed way more favorably. So here's the brutal logic behind it all. The system taxes whatever it can catch the easiest. If you tax capital too much, it just leaves. It moves to another country or into a different investment. But your labor, your job, that can't just pick up and move so easily. So the tax code leans hardest on the group that can't run away. And that brings us to the fourth and final trap, After consumerism and taxes take your money, the system comes for the one thing you can never, ever get back: your time.
The trap here starts with the actual structure of work itself. I mean, think about it. You could finish all of your work for the day by noon, but you probably still can't leave, right? Why is that? It's because most companies aren't just buying your results, they're buying your presence for a set number of hours. And that time gets filled with all this stuff. The commute to and from work, those endless meetings that could have been an email, the constant flood of messages and status updates. It's all just administrative noise that stacks up. And by the time you finally get home, you're just left with mental fatigue. You want to relax, not take on another project. A tired population is a compliant one.
And this leads to a really powerful idea called time poverty. You see, money problems, you can often solve them, but time poverty is so much worse. It absolutely destroys your options in life. It steals the precious hours you need to learn something new, to build that side project, or even just to think clearly about your life. You know, the very activities that could get you out of this trap in the first place.
So, after hearing about all these traps, I know it can feel a little bleak, but here is the most important part of this whole thing. These traps only really work when you're moving through life on autopilot. The moment you see the design, you can start to play the game in a completely different way.
This right here is the key. Awareness changes absolutely everything. Just understanding how each trap works gives you the power to see the gaps, the exits, and the other paths you can take. You don't have to overthrow the whole system, you just have to stop playing the default role it set out for you.
And this is basically the new playbook. You just reframe every single trap. Your income is no longer a cage when you start using it to build ownership. Spending isn't a constant drain when you control it, instead of letting it control you. Taxes aren't just a penalty when you shift your focus to building the kinds of assets the system actually rewards. And time stops being the enemy when you reclaim it for things that compound your growth.
So we'll leave you with this thought. The goal here wasn't to give you all the answers. It was to show you the blueprint of the box you might be living in. Now that you can see the design for what it is, the only real question left is, what's the first thing you're going to change?